Tom, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
5 years worth of metadata was spied on by police services in Quebec on journalists. Some people were rattled. Obviously, it surprised Quebec enough to launch an inquiry, but I get the feeling you weren't surprised at all.
No, we weren't surprised at all. This is just one more smoking gun in what has been a series of smoking guns over the last 10 years, but especially bad in the last 3 or 4. I mean, there have been a number of cases of journalists being spied on. There were 2 journalists in Ottawa from Quebec who were spied on. That actually had police tailing them. There was a journalist in Montreal who just recently had his laptop seized because he was looking into corruption and bad practices by a judge, had committed no crime but had his laptop seized anyway. There is a number of cases in BC where the RCMP has been using these special devices to essentially collect data on thousands of innocent Canadians. They're looking usually for one criminal, but they'll collect all of the data on thousands of Canadians. We live in what is a post-privacy era where the government is not respecting the rights of journalists or Canadians on the whole whatsoever, and it's extremely troubling.
I look at this through the prism of a journalist, obviously. It makes me sweat thinking about what would happen if somebody got a hold of the names and numbers of some of the sources. But I can also imagine that there are Canadians saying, look, that's your problem. It's not my problem. This is, stop whining, journalists. What do you say to them?
Corruption in government, bad dealings in the RCMP or in other police agencies, this stuff only generally gets exposed because someone comes to a reporter and tells them, blows the whistle, reveals a source to them, generally confidentially, and then the journalist goes out and does the reporting and finds out the information. But if we don't have those people coming forward, then Canada will suffer because it means that there's no sunlight getting into government. It allows corruption to fester, and that affects everybody.
Well, it would certainly make somebody think twice about whether they wanted to blow the whistle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge chill. It's a huge, huge chill.
I want to show you something. This is the reaction from the Prime Minister to what's been happening. I just want to get a gut check from you to this comment of his.
We have actually very strong safeguards and protections in place to protect freedom of the press in the course of the business conducted by CSIS and the RCMP, and I can confirm that those safeguards are still very much in place and are consistent with the values and concerns that this government has and that Canadians have.
You just about jumped out of your skin when you heard that.
Yeah, it's because it's what he's saying simply isn't true. The government does not protect press freedom in Canada. Our country doesn't have anywhere near the kinds of protections that most Western democracies do. And the government right now has legislation on the books that essentially gives the surveillance agencies and the police agencies unlimited abilities to surveil journalists and Canadians alike.
There's something inherently uncomfortable about this, because when I think about the Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, I think about an organization that is fighting to protect the freedoms of journalists to work in places where it's really hard. That's not supposed to be Canada. Yeah. This is perceived by many people as a bit of a paradise if you're a journalist. But how right is that?
It's wrong. Canada, in terms of Western democracies, Canada is quite far behind in terms of our press freedoms. We used to be ranked 8th in the world. We just fell last year 10 places to 18th, so we're behind Slovakia, we're behind Jamaica, we're behind Namibia. And in terms of access to information laws, which basically is people's right to get government information, we're ranked 59th out of 92 countries. We're behind Russia in terms of access to information laws, behind Mexico, way behind the United States. Almost every other Western democracy has what's called a journalism shield law, which basically means that if you're a journalist and you speak to an anonymous or confidential source, the courts cannot compel you to reveal that source. 31 states in the US have it, the UK has it, Australia has it, Germany has it, France has it, Sweden, Norway, Finland. Every other Western democracy that I can think of off the top of my head has these shield laws. Canada doesn't, and we desperately need them.
Tom, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right.